Delta Force. Delta Force runs its selection twice a year in the mountains of West Virginia at a place called Camp Dawson. A class starts with about 120 men. A dozen or fewer finish. Nobody screams at them. That is the first thing former candidates always mention. No drill sergeants, no speeches, no announced standards. The cadre hand a man a map, a compass, a rucksack, and a list of points, and then they write on clipboards and say nothing at all. He is never told his time. He is never told the cutoff. He finishes a movement, takes a truck back, and learns nothing about how he did. It ends with a march the candidates call the Long Walk. Roughly 40 miles, better than 60 pounds on the back, across the Appalachians. The distance is not announced. Neither is the time limit. Men have folded within sight of the end because they paced themselves for a race whose length they were guessing at. Published estimates put the pass rate under 10%. Some accounts put the number who actually get the job as low as 4, and every man in that class is already a Ranger or a Green Beret. Delta does not take civilians. It does not take new soldiers. Every candidate in those mountains has already survived one selection course in order to earn the right to fail this one. SEAL Team 6. The unit's real name is the Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Its tryout is called Green Team, and Green Team washes out about half the men who started. 50% sounds soft after Delta. Then you look at who is in the room. Every candidate is already a Navy SEAL, most of them with several deployments behind them. Before a man can even attend, his command has to put him forward, a board reads his entire record, and the people who served with him get phone calls asking what he is actually like at 3 in the morning. About 100 SEALs screen for it. The course runs 6 to 8 months. Candidates are graded inside shoot houses where a wrong decision is measured in a fraction of a second, and one of them is enough to end it, which points at something the raw number hides. Green Team is not testing whether a man can suffer. Buds answered that question about him years earlier. It is testing whether a man who has been told he is elite for a decade can still be corrected in front of his peers. Half of them cannot. Air Force Pararescue. The pipeline runs close to 2 years, school into school, with no long gaps to recover in. Attrition has run between 70 and 85%. At least twice, the Air Force ran a course that graduated nobody at all, but the number that should stop people is a different one. Air Force data showed that candidates in the top 25% for fitness had roughly a 15% chance of being selected. The top 5%, men running 1.5 miles in 8.5 minutes and swimming 500 meters in 7, had a 38% chance. Being one of the fittest men in the country buys a coin flip that he loses more often than he wins. And the schools are not only about suffering. Combat dive, military freefall, survival school, then paramedic certification, the real civilian qualification taken in the classroom. Men who survive the water get sent home over a written exam. The motto is, these things we do that others may live. The hardest training pipeline in the American military exists to produce a man whose entire job is to save somebody else. Navy SEALs. Basic underwater demolition SEAL training runs attrition between 73 and 80%. Almost all of it is voluntary. A man walks over to a brass bell, rings it 3 times, and sets his helmet down in the row with the others. Hell Week is 5.5 days long. Candidates sleep about 4 hours across the whole of it. But Buds is not the finish line, and that is the part most coverage skips. After it comes SEAL qualification training, another 26 weeks. Boot camp to Trident is 18 to 24 months at the absolute fastest, which leaves an uncomfortable fact sitting on the most famous unit in the world. By attrition, this is not the hardest selection in the American military. The Air Force pipeline 1 slot above it runs higher and runs longer. The difference is that everybody has seen the bell. Green Berets. Department of Defense figures covering 2012 to 2017 put attrition at Special Forces assessment and selection at 64% for enlisted candidates and 51% for officers. The qualification course that follows takes another 35 and another 27. Run those together. Of 100 men who raise their hand for Special Forces, about 23 eventually wear the beret. Selection itself is 24 days at Camp Mackle. Land navigation, sleep deprivation, and team events built around objects deliberately too heavy for the number of men assigned to carry them. Standard by the measure of this list. The Q course is where it turns strange. Every Green Beret learns a foreign language, 6 months of it. 8 hours a day, and men who survive the woods get removed by a classroom. The final exercise puts a candidate inside a fictional country called Pineland for a month, where civilian volunteers play a guerrilla force and argue with him on purpose. The job is to top foreigners into fighting, not to outlift them. Then there is peer review. In one study class, 14% of the men dropped were not dropped by the instructors at all. They were voted out by the other candidates. A man can pass every single event and still go home. 75 Ranger Regiment. The Ranger Assessment and Selection Program runs 61 days. Attrition sits above 50%, and one compiled figure puts RASP 1 and RASP 2 together at 65. The published minimums are 5 miles under 40 minutes, 49 push-ups, 59 sit-ups, 6 pull-ups. Nobody who merely meets them stays. Those are the numbers a man needs to be allowed to start losing. Attrition is front-loaded here, in a way it is not anywhere else on this list. The first week alone takes 40 to 50% of the class. Men who get through week 1 usually finish, which is exactly why the regiment sits where it sits. RASP is a door, not a destination. Delta recruits heavily out of these battalions, and so does almost everything above them. Of 100 men who sign a ranger contract, roughly 37 reach a battalion. The other 63 go somewhere else in the Army, and they do not talk about it much. Marine Raiders. MARSOC runs the lowest attrition of the 7. Assessment and selection washes out about 46%. The individual training course that follows takes another 28. There is a reason those numbers look mild, and it is not that the courses saw. MARSOC does not take civilians. There is no raider contract for a kid signing papers in a strip mall. Every candidate is already a Marine, usually with a deployment behind him and a record his command has already vouched for. The Corps does the filtering before assessment and selection begins, so assessment and selection does not have to. It is also the youngest unit here by a wide margin. MARSOC stood up in February of 2006. The name arrived much later. The Raider battalions of the Second World War were disbanded in January of 1944, and MARSOC's units were not officially redesignated as Marine Raiders until June of 2015. 71 years with the name sitting in the museum. Easiest of the 7 only means anything next to the other 6. 54 Marines out of every 100 who attempt assessment and selection are told to go back to the fleet.